My name is Val Free. I'm the Executive Director of the Neighborhood Network Alliance. This is the Hey Neighbor podcast in South Shore. And today I have with me Majani's Restaurant, Chef T, and we are here to say, Hey neighbor! First of all, thank you for coming. This is our first one, and I think that highlighting one of the best businesses in South Shore is the way to go.
Thank you.
And Majani's is definitely one of the best businesses in South Shore, one of the best restaurants, one of the most healthiest restaurants, all of that. But I would like for you to just kind of like introduce yourself, talk about Majani's. Let's have a conversation about Majani's vision, where Majani is going, and knowing that it is never leaving South Shore.
My name is Tsadakeeyah Emmanuel, co-owner of Majani, along with my wife, Chef Tsadakeeyah. And Majani was a labor of love, for sure. We're honored to be in South Shore, and lots of stories to tell about what it's like to be here. So
tell us what is Majani?
Majani is a Swahili word that means green. And so for us, green is not just the cuisine, but it's also, when you come, you'll see that all the tables I made from reclaimed oak. The ceiling was reclaimed wood, also repurposed wood. So it's that part. And also most of our staff walks to work. So it's just having that kind of energy where it's local, it's green, and so that's what we kind of build ourselves upon. Yeah. So
Majani's is a vegan restaurant in South Shore for those who don't know. And what I have to say about that is you raised the bar when you came into South Shore. You raised the expectation of how we see our eateries in South Shore. Mm-hmm. And that I have to say thank you for.
Thank you.
But continue, because I just had to interrupt.
Thank you. One thing we knew was we didn't want to have our guests ordering through bulletproof glass. And when they came into Majani, we wanted them to feel like they were coming into our living room. Mm-hmm. Leading up to opening of Majani, one day I was walking down 71st Street and there was some trash on the ground. I was like, why don't they clean up the trash?
Yeah.
And at that moment, it was like, you are the they. What you expect, what you want, it is up to you. You have a responsibility to make the changes that you want to see.
Yeah.
And I think later that day, my wife and I wanted to go out to eat, and we ended up going way up on the north side to a restaurant where they supposedly had vegan options. It was horrible. It was horrible. And I was so angry that I had left my neighborhood to go into another neighborhood and not be even satisfied. I was like, that ends today. And I started hunting that day. I did look around the city before. I was like, what are you doing? This is you got to do it here.
Yeah, you have to do it here because I know you came from Soul Veg, and just to the idea of I'm going to open up my own restaurant,
right? And
I want it in my neighborhood, and to just be frustrated with going somewhere else. That's a story within a story.
It's a story within a story.
Yeah, because again,
and I think around that same time there had been some issues of folks that had gone to like Starbucks, and you're just sitting in Starbucks, and the police get called.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to make sure that folks could come to a place and feel comfortable and be served by people that look like them and be treated with love and respect. And so those are all things that were very important to us. And so as we were putting it together, it's like, all our energy, all our love and effort was always with the thought of this has got to be like walking into, dad's living room,
And when you say who are you talking about?
I'm talking about Black folks.
I thought you were talking about your wife.
Yes. I'm talking about Black folks, and I'm talking about my wife as well. Yes.
Because your wife is a partner with you in this. And I love that it's a family business and it's a team. And, you set, like I said, you're setting a standard.
Thank you. Yeah.
Talk about working with your wife.
Every time you ask us that question, we're always going to laugh first because 90% of the time it is blissful, I have to say. And we've learned to when we're at work is yes chef, no chef. It can't be honey baby. You have to set that standard because you have to put your professional hat on because otherwise your emotions, your feelings can get in the way sometimes.
Oh,
and so you have to be, it's not like I might not, rub a boner when I'm at work or something like this, but it has to be more in the lean more towards the professional side than it is so tell
me, how did you get to that, and how often does it really work when you do have to set a standard, raise the voice, hold one another accountable?
Yeah, I mean, holding each other accountable can be a tricky part. But we started off working together. We did 1 year of working for Kwame Nkrumah Academy, 95th and Cottage. Mm-hmm. We did the school lunches for them for a year, and so that was the first time outside of catering that we were, locked at the hip for the whole time. Mm-hmm. And we learned then because you have time crunches, you got to be ready on time. So you got to push. I've worked in that setting before. She had not.
Okay.
And so I had to push her, and it became like, you can't talk about it. Look, it's not personal. This is business. And so we learned then to get that balance, and we've tweaked it, but we've learned then to get that balance that it's a professional environment and you have to honor the standards that I hear, and I can see how that goes.
It can be tough.
Yeah.
But you all are still doing it and going strong. And Majani is still one of the number one restaurants in South Shore.
Thank you.
And we appreciate that. But let's talk about being in South Shore, opening up a restaurant where it's very hard to open up a restaurant like yours in South Shore in an African American neighborhood where we're traditionally greens, beans. You have all of that. Don't get me wrong. You have all of that. But soul food, traditional soul food. Yes. And to introduce a healthier version of food with no meat on 72nd and Yates. Not South Shore Drive where you might find most of the people, but 72nd and Yates. What's that like?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to tell you, when we were building the restaurant, people would ask, what is this going to be? And we'd say it's going to be a vegan restaurant. They'd be like, we need a soul food restaurant. I'm like, well, this is going to be soul food. We need some meat. And it was funny to me. And it can give you pause because there can be, people can say things that, oh, this is not going to work. And we had investors that were willing to invest if we had went to Hyde Park or if we had went on the north side. And I said, no, we are going to be in South Shore come hell or high water. And they were like, there's no foot traffic and all this stuff. And we were like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And if we fail, fine. But
we bring the foot traffic.
I just felt like this is something that I was compelled to do. And there was no way that I was not going to do it. And, so I think leading up to it, there was enough support that made me feel like, okay, we're on the right path. Yeah. And when things kind of happen in your favor, you know that you're being guided in a certain way. And, I'll never forget the first day we opened up and seeing that crowd of folks, like it was busy. And it was busy at Majani. The first 3 years we were open, I was like, my God, this is like, it's never going to slow down. And we were grateful, but we've laid the groundwork. This just is, it didn't happen in a vacuum. I've been in Chicago since '91, and we've done a lot of community work in South Shore, across the South Side, and so people know us and they know what our standards are.
And you had a following before you opened up the restaurant, because I know I used to order from you a couple of times.
Yes.
I have some funny stories about people who didn't eat healthy, man. But I remember ordering from you, and the menu is different from the catering.
Yes.
But it's still good food. But talk about like when the crowd kind of slowed down around 2020. How did you rebound from 2020? Because there are some restaurants that closed and never going to open up again.
Well, I'm going to tell you, 2020, the South Shore, at that time, by the time we had just opened up 2 other locations. We had the one in Pullman, and then we opened up a ghost kitchen in the South Loop. And so 2020 was interesting. Our South Shore location actually did better in 2020 than it did in 2019.
You did?
Yeah. The issues that we had came from our Pullman location and the South Loop location.
Oh.
Between labor and overhead, those are the ones that took the hit. And those are the ones, but the South Shore location hardly missed a beat. It just went from dine in to takeout.
Yeah.
And so that's why, no matter what, we're always going to hold on to the South Shore. So.
But that's also a testament to your investors who didn't believe in the neighborhood.
Yeah. They came around eventually.
Which is, the other reason why I wanted you here, because we need more restaurants like that, and we need to know, and investors need to know that South Shore is a place to invest in.
What I do know is leading up to the restaurant, there was the 2010 LISC report that outlined what was missing in South Shore, and that was the first time
you had saw that?
I did read that.
Okay, yeah, that was a deep report.
It was a deep report. It talked about the hundreds of millions of dollars that are leaked out. Not you can't say leaking. That's a hemorrhage. That hemorrhage out of the neighborhood every year. And at the time, there was one sit down restaurant. Now there's 2.
Yeah.
But there was room. They said based on what the numbers they see in the demographic, there should be a dozen. Yeah,
I mean, you can still go back to that study today, and it's 2023. I mean 2023, and it's still. Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. So we certainly, this community certainly could support, another, 8, 9, 10 restaurants easily, and they could all do well. So that was the thing about Majani is that, come on in, the water's fine. All the apprehensions that you may have about whether it's crime or theft or all that kind of stuff. We have had 0 issues of theft. Like no one's broken in and taken anything. No one has been, injured coming or going. And we've had no issues around that. Especially that was the one thing that I was like, we're going to be here. At that time, we opened until 10 o'clock. And so is there going to be safety issues, with myself or my wife or staff? But we've had 0 issues, 0 issues.
One of the things that was in that report, I'm glad you brought it up, but one of the things that was in that report was that South Shore ranks number 3 in terms to middle to upper income.
Right.
And with a Majani's or a restaurant that like a Majani's, they would really do well. And I think the stigma that we don't have the money and we don't cater to our businesses has to be broken. Tell me, how did you feel that you started to be the pioneer? Because you're the pioneer, to be honest with you, because of the type of restaurant you have. Yeah. And it's a sit-down restaurant where, we had sit-down restaurants in the past, but not in the last 20 years. Yeah. Right? So how do you feel about where you might have been the pioneer of breaking the ceiling, the traditional, we're going to go get some fried chicken and French fries and maybe some fried fish, and you're going to smell it 3 blocks away, and and the kid's going to eat that or some Skittles.
Well, as you alluded to earlier, you had some of the food from our meal program. We had a meal delivery service that really was a kind of a testing ground, a proving ground, and I've done that. We did that for 2 decades. And so we had a lot of experience in sometimes it was just a sample, like, okay, let's try this, and let's get feedback. So we had a lot of feedback in terms of what works, what the palate had an appetite for, and what didn't work. So we had been testing the ground for quite a while from that perspective. And I think the second thing was the thing that outside of the food, the thing that we were most thoughtful about was service. Like we wanted to eliminate any excuse for, we went there, the food was good, but the service was bad.
Yes.
Like we were just as focused on having a good dining experience and having good service. Not to say that we haven't had our hiccups, but if you look at our reviews, which we maintain a 4.6 across all platforms.
Yes.
Which is remarkable.
That's amazing.
It is. And so for us, we were just as focused on service and having a good experience as we were on making sure that the food was good. And so we wanted to eliminate any excuse about, it is this, but it's that. For us, it had to be, it's all
it's
of
a
this.
standard.
It's a high standard across the board. And so that just, that's just, thinking about all the details in a way.
Because, when you have to advocate for excellence in your business, sometimes that means you might not come off as the best person.
Yeah, I mean. And
how do you manage that? Because a standard, everybody don't rise to the occasion. You know what I mean? But how in a restaurant business in the neighborhood where they used to seeing low bar, low, you know what I mean? How do you manage that from the inside out? Mm-hmm. Because it's a standard. When I walk into your restaurant, I feel a certain kind of way. I don't feel like I'm in the neighborhood that the media describes.
Right. Yeah. So that's setting a standard across the board, making sure that it's clean, it's organized. And some of that comes in the design, like the way that the restaurant is designed. Like, for example, the epoxy floors makes the floors, they're easy to clean. And so the floors look, almost as good now as they did 7 years ago. Just the way it's designed, tile work in the bathroom so you don't get nicks and scuffs on the wall. Tile, the way the way that it's designed so that it helps to maintain that standard. And then training your staff. Like, this is what the standard is. I had a young lady.
How tough is that?
That is probably the biggest challenge.
Because if I used to work at McDonald's, not knocking McDonald's, but because they do have a standard.
They do have a standard.
But I used to work at the chicken factory down the street, and they sell old chicken, and
right.
You know what I mean. Chicken might have just hit the floor, and we're still gonna sell it.
Yeah.
How do you manage that in terms of your staff?
It starts with the interview. I had a young lady who came in. She came in to pick up an Uber, and she's like, "Oh, I like the vibe." I said, "You should apply." She said, "I live right on the corner." I said, "Come in tomorrow at 11:30. That's the first standard. You set a time for the interview. You have to be here for the interview. If you come late for the interview, I'm not going to see you."
I understand.
She came in the next day. She came in at 11:33. I'm not going to see you. You have to come at before 11:30. So it starts. It starts right at the beginning. It's like we're not going to have that. If you cannot get here on time, there's no way I'm going to interview you. And so it just she knows right away that we're setting a bar, and I said you're going to have to change your standard. I'm not going to change mine.
Exactly.
And so I think that's kind of sets the tone for our staff, and like you have to do, and quite honestly, it does set the stage for turnover. Because if you can't do it and do it this way, you're not gonna fool around and mess up my reputation, the reputation of this restaurant. We have worked too hard. And to throw that away because we have to have. And if that means us putting in extra hours or whatever, that's what that means. But we work hard to set and maintain that standard.
I ask that question because I think a lot of people think like you get the success that you get because you're just hiring people in the neighborhood and it's in the neighborhood, but not really understanding that you have a standard, you expect excellence. And when people walk into your business, your restaurant, they feel that, they experience that. And it doesn't come because you just kind of said, okay, I'll just hire you. It came because you started with the standard from the beginning. And so it lays the foundation for why you're getting so much press, why your food is good, why people still coming, why you're still strong in South Shore. And we don't want you to go anywhere. So, yeah. So
I'll tell you, I think when we first opened up, I remember reading an article about a couple who had a restaurant on the north side. And they were, after 7 years, they said, we've had enough. We're done. And I think this is maybe year 2 or 3. And I was like, wow, they just walked away. And as we approach year 7, I understand how that happens. It is intense, and it is intense every day, all day. When you leave the restaurant, it doesn't even when you leave, it doesn't stop. It's never done.
It's a labor of love.
It's always work to be done. You're always thinking about, and there's always things that need to be done.
Yeah.
So
don't leave.
The beauty of it is the beauty of Majani, and it speaks to not just us, but it speaks to the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Is that 50% of all restaurants fail in the first year or two, and this goes by to it's like 80% of all restaurants never make it to year 5 or 6, and so for us to be at knocking on year 7, it's like there's like less than 10% get to that point.
Yes.
And
you did it in an African American neighborhood that people don't think that is worthy of investing, and you prove them wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're proud of that, but it speaks to also the support of the neighborhood. I mean, and I think the pent up demand for an excellent product.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you bring it and you do it right, I think then you can be successful.
Yeah, I think the same thing. We just need more of it, and this is why I felt like
people in South Shore, they not only travel around the city, but these are folks that travel around the world. They know
good food.
They know good food.
Mm-hmm.
And so so I think if you have a product that is thoughtful and all those things, then you can do well, because this is a sophisticated audience. So you have to be correct.
You got to bring it.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. So tell me about, how do you leverage your marketing, social media? How do you engage your customers, and where can people find what's happening on your menu, what's hot, what's not, that type of stuff?
Social media is certainly a powerful tool. When I had my first restaurant back in 2000, none of that existed. There was no emails and all that kind of stuff the way that we have it now. And so, we have over 10,000 followers on our Instagram account, and over 5,000 on our Facebook. So, when we put things out, people typically chime in. We get a fair amount of responses, and so we try to stay engaged. I don't probably do as good a job as I need to do, but
it's work.
Yeah, I mean, because I've always felt like a good restaurant should rely more on word of mouth than advertisement. Yeah. I didn't advertise at all for our first restaurant.
You didn't have to. You had already did the work.
Yeah. So if you have a good product and you do all things right, then word of mouth should be your biggest tool. But people have to be reminded of, oh, that's right, Majani is still here, and whatever new things that you have, and we kind of hunkered down the last 2-3 years just because of COVID and all the things that brought, and so we're just now kind of getting back to
the swing.
The swing, and now that we've closed all the other locations and we're focused solely on the one, we haven't got away from brunch. We're going to bring brunch back in a couple weeks.
Oh, nice. See, that's something we need to know.
That's something you need to know. You're hearing it here first.
Yeah, so tell us about what's coming up. Let's plan. We can close it out with the plans and where people, and for those who don't know where you are, where they can come to, where your location.
So we're located at 7167 South Exchange, right on the corner of 72nd and Exchange. And for the winter, we had actually cut our hours. We were open Thursday, Friday, Saturday only. And so we'll add Sunday brunch from 11 till 3. And then we'll add another day or so back Wednesday. Probably go back to 5 days a week sometime in mid-February. And, we're going to do some mild renovations. And
any new things coming on the menu?
I think that's the thing that
because I love the okra.
Well, the okra is seasonal, so
I know it's unfortunate.
Is from it speaks to kind of our other philosophy, being able to support local farmers, and that's something that that we get locally. And so when it's in season, it's in season. And when it's not, we have to look forward to the next season. So
I can eat some greens too, but anyway. So what's going on? What's expanding?
So we want to add. We're going to go back to where the menu has been static the last couple of years, go back to playing around with new recipes and new appetizers and stuff. And so we do a lot of takeout, a lot more than I would care for. We were designed to be a sit-down restaurant.
Yes.
So I'm trying to entice folks to come back and sit down and enjoy.
I think that'll
a
happen because I
conversation.
think people are, the pandemic is kind of wearing down. Folks are getting out more.
Yeah, so that I'm looking
Summertime.
forward to, especially in the summertime.
Mm-hmm. Get some music. And,
Hopefully we can do some outdoor seating
yeah.
this summer. So those are the things
I'm
that
looking
are
forward
kinda
to it.
on the horizon for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for coming by. I really appreciate your business. You stopping by. We want to give you a highlight and say thank you.
I need one of those t-shirts.
We're going to get you one of these t-shirts. That's right. Say, what does it say?
Hey,
neighbor. That's right. Well, thank you. Thank you.
My
I
pleasure.
appreciate it.
All right, now.